All right, welcome. This is the Degenerate Mentor, and I have my first guest, Chris Webb, with me. And so, basically, what this podcast is going to be about is finding people that may have lived a lifestyle that they probably weren't very proud of, and then change that mindset and lifestyle to something that they are. So, what we talk about is going from being the warning to being the example. So, Chris, I mean, I know a lot about you, but kind of tell us, a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we'll get into some deep questions here.
Deep question. So, um, Chris Webb, I am 52 years old, a brand new grandfather. So that's amazing. What I do now, I'm fortunate enough, I should say, grateful and fortunate that I've made some changes in my life and been able to create options that allows me to spend a lot of time working on myself, helping other people do the same. We run a business from our phones, so we get to work from anywhere. And spend a lot of time with our grandson, spend a lot of time traveling, spend a lot of time going to concerts, and spend a lot of time just enjoying this season of life. So I never saw it looking this way, but from what I've learned over time, we might think we see the path, but it's always different.
Awesome. So I have some questions that I'm going to ask, and I'm just going to have you answer them. So, can you share a pivotal moment in your life when you realized you needed to change your path? Like, what was that? Did you have an aha moment, or?
Yeah, I did. What's really interesting is that I thought I had a lot of aha moments until I really had an aha moment. I actually had two. So the first one was, I think it was about 11 years ago. So it's funny. I was getting ready to turn 40 and I was like, man, something's got to change because I was drinking almost every day. I smoked over a pack of cigarettes daily, 50 pounds overweight. And my life was just, I was not very proud of it, but I was the fun guy. So it made it better, right? So I was getting ready to turn 40 and I was like, man, something's got to change. And it did. It actually got worse. Yeah, I don't know what it was, like sabotage. I don't even know. Looking back now, I can't tell you what it was. But then 41 came. And that's when I was at a Thanksgiving dinner-ish party thing and with family. And my brother and I, who drank a lot together, drank all night long, throughout the night, into the next day. Family had left that day, came back the following morning for like post-Thanksgiving breakfast type thing. We were still out partying.
Getting after it.
And that was that. I remember that day I drove back from Palm Springs back here to Lake Havasu. And I was like, man, something's got to change because this is the moment, is I saw family members look into my eyes like, oh my gosh, like he's been drinking this whole time. Like almost like their level of respect for me dropped. Like I felt it. And I was like, wow, that was not cool. That hurt. So then I made some changes there to start working on my health and fitness, but I still drank and partied, but I started working out. So it's like I did make a shift. And then it was about 8 years ago that this was the second one, and this was one changed everything, is when my son had said something to me as I was out back, patio trashing is what we called it. And he had said something to me, and I said the words that I was told my whole life when I was a kid. And that was, do what I say, not as I do. And it was like, I felt those words like leave my mouth, and I was like, oh my fuck. Like I said that. And I was drunk at the time, but it stuck with me. I woke up the next morning. I was like, I can't, that's it. I can't. And there was a lot of times in between, as anyone knows who drank before and said, I'm going to quit, I'm going to quit, I'm going to quit. But that was it for me. That was like, man, I said those words and it hit me for whatever reason. And that point on, that was September, I want to say 2015, that quit drinking, quit smoking. And I was already working out. So kind of went all together and just made that change.
So when you did that, you just told yourself you're not going to do it anymore and quit? What did it look like? I know, for me, a lot of people ask me how I quit. Like, did I go to a program? Did I go to rehab? Did I do these things? And I just quit. And then is there struggle? Sure. There's tons of struggle.
Yeah.
And, that's just how I did it personally. So I'm always curious, how other people do it as well. And so what did that look like for you over the, like maybe the first 6 months of not doing those things? Where did you find that you were, obviously we got to put our time into something, time and energy, right? We joke about it all the time that we're addicted to something. I got to be addicted to something, if it's health and fitness or, now it's like video equipment, whatever that may be for me. What did that look like for you? And how were those first 6 months?
Right. So it started with actually making, like speaking it out to the world using social media. I remember putting a post out there that I was done drinking. So I needed that accountability. Like, instead of just like, okay, I'm going to quit drinking. This is what I hear a lot of people say. I'm going to quit drinking. I haven't said anything to anyone. So I get messages like that. I haven't said anything to anyone in 30 days, 60 days, 3 months. I haven't said anything to anyone yet. And that's cool. That works for them. But for me, I needed to put it out there because I needed some accountability. So I did that. And in the first, and whether that was good or bad in regards to relationships, I don't know, because I got a lot of resistance from quote unquote friends who I did spend a lot of time with drinking, who had their own feelings of me quitting. So that was tough. The first few months was really tough in regards to friendships, relationships, and then figuring out who I was, because I never knew myself as a sober adult. And I considered going to AA. I had no problems with it. Like I wasn't like against it or anything like that. However, I just felt like I had enough momentum and desire that I didn't quite need that. And I was working with a group of people who were very much into personal growth, personal development. And I leaned more into that group of people than my previous group of people I was leaning into. So that helped me through that. So it was really hard in the very beginning. I had a lot of haters, had a lot of things. It was really hard. I might still have them, but I don't see them as much. They're not as loud as they used to be.
That's good.
I'm sure I have haters, and that's fine. I think everyone should.
So do you think that was maybe the toughest part of that transformation? I know for me, not even like the old friends, because most of those friends I'm still friends with. And a lot of those friends now, almost 6 years for me, have also quit drinking.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can reconnect. Not that you didn't connect, we just didn't connect over the same things then as we do now, which I think is great. But I think sometimes the hardest part for me, because I do like to be liked, right? And like you, I was the fun guy. And so now I went from full extrovert to like almost full introvert, where I can be by myself. Before I couldn't be by myself, like the thoughts and the things. And so I'd go out, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I can actually just sit by myself with my wife gone at my house and be okay with that. But I missed those people. Like there was still connection. There was still all of the relationship, all of that. It wasn't less than just because we partied together. There was still a lot of deep connection, right? A lot of misery loves company. So there was a lot of things that we would talk about and things that people were going through and being there for each other. And those things that I had with that group of people. And so do you think that was part of the hardest part of your journey? Or what would you say maybe was the hardest part of the journey from then until now?
So it's interesting because I didn't find myself with deep connections with a lot of people who kind of, we went different ways. It was so much hardcore partying that I realized that, wow, we didn't really have a lot of things in common. And they weren't, the group of people that I was associated with when I quit drinking weren't lifelong friends for the most part. So it was a little bit different for me. The hardest part for me, to be honest with you, was just figuring out who I was. Like how I felt like I lost my happy hour. I lost my fun zone. I lost that fun Chris. Like I didn't even like myself. Like I felt like I was miserable. Like I didn't want to be with myself. However, I do found myself in the same situation as you, is that I could be with myself, even though I didn't know who I was. I was more comfortable being alone when I quit drinking. I didn't need to feel like I needed to fill myself with drinking. I didn't need that escape or whatever. I had more clarity, which a lot of people talk about when they quit drinking. And so I was just really just trying, I was in this like self-discovery type mode, which I feel like hasn't stopped since then. But prior to quitting drinking, I didn't feel like I was really discovering myself. I was just trying to have more fun, if that makes sense. But since really this kind of self-discovery journey, I feel like just one thing has led to the next, has led to the next, has led to the next. And I've embraced that now, but I couldn't see it 8 years ago. I just knew that it was something that, like a lily pad, that I had to jump on before I can jump on the next one. I couldn't be trusted with more in my life if I kept fucking up the things that I had.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to trust that. But I didn't. Here's the thing, Greg, is I didn't know any of that. I wouldn't have known any of that without being surrounded by people who were in, let's say, the personal growth or personal development, you know, space, I guess would be the right
like
word.
why would you ask yourself those questions? Like that's super deep. I mean,
Yeah.
to just get really philosophical with yourself just because, I mean, that's hard work. I mean, it's hard work when people tell you, hey, journal, ask yourself these questions and then answer them. Like even that is hard, but to come up with the question itself.
Yeah.
I always find this funny. Like you said, I figured out I didn't have a lot of things in common with those people, but what did you really do? When I look at myself, what did I really do that I could have in common with somebody when I drank? I drank. I mean, I partied.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. It was go to Glamis, party. It was go on the lake, party. It was go to the bar, party. It was go to brunch, party. It was go to, so I didn't have anything to have in common with anybody anyway. Like I didn't go on the hikes. I didn't, do projects. I mean, I did those things previously in my life. And so I remember Dustin asking me like, hey, now that you're sober, what's fun for you? Because you don't do much anymore, right? So think about what's fun for you now. Because the whole life, I remember asking Melinda, hey, I really think I need to quit drinking. And if I do, will you still love me? Because I'm not going to be this. I know I'm not going to be the same guy fun wise.
Yeah.
Right. Now we do stupid fun, right? We go climb a mountain or we go ruck or we go cold plunge or whatever. It's like, and there's people that are crazy about that stuff. So you can find your people. So now those are the things that I have in common with people, but it's like, but what did I do before? I had really no hobbies except I was really good at partying.
Yeah. And you become really close with the people who have the same pace as you. Right.
Yeah.
You're on my pace.
Yeah. And it was a good pace.
Yeah. All right.
I always say some people can, some people can't. I just was one of the ones that could.
Yeah. And so it's a really interesting question. What is fun now? What does fun look like now? And, and it's like, is that really fun? Like I do a lot of shit that I don't know. It's like, whoa, like this morning, for example, I went and ran 3 miles and I ran my fastest 5K that I have ran in a few years. And it's like, and that was fun for me.
For you.
Yeah, that was fun. And winning is fun. And I don't mean like winning, like crossing a finish line winning, but like achievement. Achievement for me now is fun because I think once I overcame the hardest thing in my life, which was drinking and smoking cigarettes, once I overcame that, it's like, oh, fuck, what else can I do? Right? What else can I do? What else can I do? And then started working on like the 4 things that I love working on is fitness, finances, marriage, and mindset. And so in all of those areas, I try to find what is next that I can work on, right? Done this, like, and so in my marriage, like Danny and I have gotten so close and we've peeled back so many layers of who we are and we've just become closer and closer. It's like, what next? What can we do next? It's just, and that for me is fun, having a vision to work towards. And it's so weird. It goes back to, what we hear, biblical verses and stuff. A man without vision will perish and all of that. And it's like, fuck, all that stuff is just, for me, it's so true because without that, I don't have that fun. I don't have that achievement thing to look forward to. Like I'm searching, I was just searching yesterday for another marathon to sign up for because I don't want to wait another year. Because when I started training for this last marathon, I was like, wow, I missed that goal of having, here comes this deadline and I want to train for it. However, I also realized in that same breath, and I know we're kind of all over the place here, but I also realized in that is that out of sight, out of mind, like it wasn't there for a long time and I wasn't looking for it. But then then it was there and I was like, wow, I missed this. I miss having something in place to go after. And so it kind of created some more awarenesses in my life. It's like, okay, so that is a good thing. I need to make sure that I have achievements set up in all 4 of those areas at all times. Like that's a goal for me.
Yeah, you're working towards, because that's that journey, right? It's that process, really. The process, the result, you went and ran it. Like whatever you got, but it was the process of getting there. I remember when you first started, well, you said you were going to start training and then you got behind and then you had to kind of catch up. And it's like, wow, it probably hurt. in the very beginning. It's like, but if I did this 3 times a year, I mean, it's still going to hurt, right? It's 26 miles, but not as bad.
Yeah.
And so it always reminds me of, my favorite Goggins quote. It's like, I'm not crazy. I'm just not you.
Yeah.
Because people will say, well, Chris, like, why do you have to always achieve? I don't know. I think, I find fulfillment in it. I find moments of joy in it. And I don't know if it makes me happy or not, because we've talked about this before. I don't really know if I understand what happy is, but I do know I find moments of joy in those hard times. Me and my buddy James are talking about that. It's like climb the snowy mountain miserably, get to the top, super cool, moment of joy, and then shit, we got to go back down. Shouldn't be that bad, right? It's snow, and it is worse to go back down than it was to go back up. So then it's a moment of joy to get to the truck again. And then that moment of joy to go to Chick-fil-A. Right. We earned the chicken sandwich. So there was that moment of joy there, but I don't know like how happy it made me. But there were definitely, the achievement was amazing. Knowing that we could do it. Okay, well, now if we can do that, what else can we do? And so I get that question a lot. Like, is there ever a finish line? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is or not.
I don't know. I think it's part of the human experience is achievement. If we look back to everything, I mean, the world is what it is because men have and women, humans have gone after and achieved more and achieved more and achieved more. So it's in our nature,
Yeah, I think Ed Milet said unreasonable people change the world.
Yeah.
Because they're doing things that other people just won't do.
Yeah. And so it's interesting when you asked that question a second ago, if someone says, why do you feel like you always have to achieve? My first instinct, because I'm kind of a dick like that, and I'm like, why the hell would you ask me that? And what is the opposite? Right? What is the opposite? Not achieving? And does it bother you that I'm achieving? Now, if you're just asking me just as pure interest, why do you feel that you need to achieve?
Yeah, like maybe I ask you because I want to know your take on it versus my take.
Yeah, that's totally different than the perspective of someone who is feeling offended or less than or something, and which we deal with all the time. We as in humans deal with that all the time. And if you don't want to deal with that, then do nothing, say nothing, be nothing.
Yeah, just don't be a human.
Yeah, you can just not achieve shit and just feel, stay down low.
So how did your mindset and perspective change throughout your journey? Like obviously we know that you look at things differently now than you did then, or even probably 6 months ago or last year, or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago. How has that progressed, and what's that mindset shift been for you?
Well, I guess if you were to ask me how it's progressed, I'm I lean everything, and I owe everything to going to events and getting surrounded by and open to personal growth. Not having the resistance up, not having my arms crossed, going, what is it like? Just being open to hearing other perspectives and be open to having more awarenesses of myself and the human experience. And so I just attribute so much to that. And because of that, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. And I love that part of growth. And I don't think the same way as I thought 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. And I hope that I never do. I hope that I don't think the way that I'm thinking right now, 6 months from now. So books play a big role. In high school, I paid people to read books for me. I barely graduated.
It's that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, right. Whatever it took to graduate by half a credit. That's what I did. And I didn't like reading until I did, right? And what I mean by that is I didn't like reading until I found a book that changed everything for me, and that book was Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And from that point on, I was just very open to reading and finding a time that worked for me, being open to, instead of like, I can't read at night. No, what can I do that I can read? What time of day can I find that I can, right? Instead of I just can't. So I was open to reading. I found what worked for me, the time of day. I just got into the practice of it, created rituals, because I learned from the books that I was reading how important it was to read and create rituals. And success leaves clues. You see anybody succeeding at a high level, they are open to growth. They are growth oriented. They read books, they listen to podcasts, they watch the right videos, they surround themselves with the right people. All of those things, they're all clues. So whether we pick up on them or not is up to us. And
do you think that you pick up on them because your perspective changes?
Now
because the opportunity is always there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just a matter of being open to tapping into it. And so then it becomes like, I think of Ryan Holiday, I think ego is the enemy. I think of so many things about how we get into the I got this syndrome, which I was in for so many years and still am with different things. I have to catch myself when I'm in the I got this syndrome. Like, wait a second, fuck, if I say I got this, then I'm not open to growth. I don't really have it, or I would have the things that I'm wanting already, right? So I'm way more open to it now, more so than I was. So it's kind of an interesting question, kind of bulk of questions that you had right there. I just truly believe that willingness is the answer to everything. We can want all we want. We can want all we want. We can want all the things and say, I want a big business. I want to have this relationship with my wife. I want to run this full marathon. I want to, whatever it is, read 40 books a year. But are you willing to do what it takes? And it always comes down to willingness. And I don't know, how do you teach? You can't teach willingness.
No. And so the one thing that comes back to my mind over and over and over again with what you're saying is like, victims won't take the chance. Victims won't have the willingness. And I'm a victim still a lot in certain things, right? And I have to catch myself and be like, okay, what would the victor do instead of the victim? Mm-hmm. Right? The victim would take the chance. The victim would be like, okay, I don't know it all. Let me open up my ears and actually listen to what's going on and figure out how I can make a change there. And so, because I've got to watch you too, you can, I believe, like a lot of times we get to have life happen to us, and we're okay with it, because then it's the reason why we live a shit life. And so then it's all okay. And then we might be hanging out with the same type of people. Like, yeah, the man and this and the world and our jobs, and we can't get ahead, and middle class, and now we're lower class, and all those things, right? Or what could I do to maybe take a step further? And now having that willingness, it's like, okay, well, I don't think you can be a victim and have willingness at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so as you were talking about that, it's like in my brain, I'm like, man, he went from probably life happening to him, then to life happening for him, by opening up. Somebody told me the other day, opportunities are never lost. They're just taken by somebody else. Like the opportunity to quit drinking was always there. To quit smoking was always there. To have a better relationship with Danny was always there. To be a better dad, all those things. We just didn't have the clarity to take it. Right. And the clarity, I think, is clouded because we didn't have the willingness to look, because then we couldn't be the victim either. Yeah. And I think, all of our human needs can be met by all of those things, positive or negative. And maybe we just got in a rut where the negative prevailed.
It's interesting because there's so many people that lean into, I'm just in a rut or whatever it is. And the best question that I learned from Ronnie was, what do you like about that? And I've asked that question many times. So whenever I feel like I'm stuck, whenever I feel like whenever I feel there's an excuse somewhere, what do I like about that? And I talk to a lot of guys just doing what I do. I talk to a lot of guys, and they would be in a situation where they can name off all the things that are shit in their life. And my question is, what do you like about that? Because there is something that we lean into where we are comfortable there as opposed to being the victor, right? And we get the buy-in from our friends. We get the buy-in, it's okay, I understand, I see what you're going through, and now I'm comfortable because I don't have to do the things to make changes. However, the willingness, I think, will only come when we say we are setting the example that I'm not going to settle. Right. So here's the example the question that I ask all the guys that I work with. I'm like, so your life is the way that it is right now. So when your son comes up to you and he's 12 years old and he says, Dad, I started smoking. I can't stop. My friends are all drinking. I started drinking. I can't stop drinking. I really want to do XYZ with my life, but I just feel like all my friends are going to make fun of me and this and that. And I want to have a great woman. I don't want to date a bunch of girls, all that. I really just want to be the great guy, but I just feel all this resistance. What is your answer going to be to them? It's going to be one of two things. It's going to be, sorry, son, just get used to this kind of life because that's the way it's going to be. You're never going to be able to get over it. Look at your dad. Or it's going to be, I feel you, son. I went through the same thing. This is what I had to do. It fucking sucked. I had to do this. I had to do this. I had to do this.
Right.
Now look at your dad.
Could even still be doing some stuff.
Yeah. Right? And now look at your dad. Right. So now look at your dad is always the answer. But which dad are they looking at? And I think if that hits you hard enough, your level of willingness will increase, right? So when people say, and we talk about, well, people have the willingness or they don't, I think we all have the willingness. It's just at different levels, right? So I don't know if that made sense, but
Makes sense to me.
to me, that's like what I think about all the time is like, how would I answer that question to my kids and now my grandson growing up, just get used to it. Just get used to the life sucking.
People always will say, like, you can tell your kid they can be whatever they want. And then what if they came back to you and said, well, then why didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like, wow.
Yeah.
Both those questions. And the Ronnie question is like, for me, I'll always change it a little bit too. It's like, okay, obviously I need this. And what in this do I actually need?
Mm-hmm.
And then why do I need it? And then what kind of a person for myself does that make me? Right. Like if I frustrate my wife or I say something that I shouldn't say and it makes her feel a certain way, it's like, you literally get something from that. Like what kind of a person would get something from this? And it's like, man, like, yeah, no, hold on. I'm so sorry. Like, no. And so it's haunted me. That guy, Ronnie, haunted me, right? Because you have to, you don't have to, but if you want to be fair to yourself, it's like, okay, what do I get out of this? Mm-hmm. What am I needing from this? And what am I getting out of it? Mm-hmm. And then how do I change that? Okay, here's my last question for you. And so you did some of it already, but it's, what advice would you give to someone who is currently struggling to break free from a detrimental lifestyle or is at the early stages of building their business? Because both of those take overcoming and take the willingness that you kind of already talked about. But if you could, like, one thing, like you had 2 minutes to tell them, like, this is where I think you should start. And if you could do these things, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Your parents are right. Surround yourself by the right people, right? Your friends equal everything. Just like, you could probably do this. I could probably do this, but people can guess your bank account by the bank accounts of your friends. So instead of bank account, you can say your wealth, you can say your mindset, you can say your relationships, you can say your fitness. It doesn't matter. Any of those things will all be impacted by who you surround yourself by. So if that is true, then, which it is, I believe, if you believe that's true, then what are the things that you need to do to make those changes, right? That's like the key, because we could have the willingness to achieve in all these things in business and life and growth and all these things. However, if when we're done working for the day and we go back to the people who are tearing it down and talking shit and we fall back into that mindset, it will never grow. It'll always just be a ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. However, when
that's exhausting.
It is exhausting. And I know I've been there. And so what the hardest thing to do is to cut ties sometimes, set boundaries, raise your standards, and say, I'm not willing to let those people dictate what my life is, right? Because if you were to fill the room with all the people paying your bills, it would equal, if you put them all together, zero, right? So all the people who are going to have a relationship with your wife, hopefully zero, right? But you know what I mean? All the people that are going to raise your kids, zero. It's just you. However, we take influence from other people. We're asking plumbers for electrical advice or whatever, right? So I say that generalized because a lot of us
water and electricity mix, so that's probably not a good idea.
Right. So I don't know. I could talk for a long time on this, because for me, it was everything to surround myself with the right people and cut ties with the wrong people. And that was fucking hard for me because I love people.
Probably the hardest thing.
The hardest thing. I love people. I didn't like hurting their feelings. I didn't like feeling like I was better than, right? Which for a lot of them in conversations gave me the, who are you to this, or look at you now, and all of these things, which stop a lot of people dead in their tracks from growth. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't willing to stop. And so I had to cut ties and move forward and get surrounded by people who, I mean, it's funny. I was driving over to your house today and I said, we've been meeting for coffee roughly once a week for roughly 2 years, something like that. I don't know, whatever. And it took that to be invited to Greg's house for the first time. Right. And I say that jokingly, but at the same time, prior to meeting you, I was intimidated by you. Right. And I always think about, if we're not surrounded by people we're intimidated by, we're not surrounding ourselves with the right people.
Yeah, it's hard to level up.
Yeah, you're not going to level up if there's not people in the room that you aspire to be, or or a little bit intimidated by, or doing better and bigger things than you are. So that might have been longer than a 2-minute version of what advice I would give. But I think the strongest piece of advice is to make sure you're surrounded by the right people, because all of the things that we need to do to get better will come from the people who have done them before you, right? So that's the key. Get in front of those people who are doing the things in life that you want to do. Take their advice and then fucking do something with it. Right?
Yeah, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole, right? So
awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming by. And yeah, I
thanks,
guess,
buddy.
Well, you're probably one of only 8 or 9 people that have been invited to my house. So it's I don't know if that means anything, but I appreciate you. I love you. I love watching you going from being the warning to the example. And you set an example for me every day in the things that you do. And so there are definitely things that you do that I aspire to do as well. So I appreciate you coming by.
I appreciate you, brother. I feel the same way. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Cool.
See you.